This last few weeks, we've been going through a series entitled How to Be Truly Happy. And what we've been doing is looking at a very famous sermon that Jesus made. It's called Sermon on the Mount, creatively entitled because he was on a mount when he sermonized it, when he spoke it. And but joking aside, it's interesting because the sermon's kind of known for a couple of things. It's first of all known as this hard-hitting sermon where Jesus paints the picture of what it is to really be a Christian. And if you call yourself a Christian and then you look at these chapters 5, 6, and 7, it's kind of very, very painful, isn't it? You really think, okay, I'm a failure there, and there, and there, and there, and there. It's just incredibly hard-hitting. It's his sort of discipleship manual, is the phrase that we could call it. Jesus laying out a portrait. It's like an artist who paints a picture of what Christians should be like. And he uses the phrase that Christians should be the salt of the earth. So the idea is salt is very distinctive, isn't it? You know, if you were to put your finger in different white substances, you might not be able to tell the difference between sugar and NutraSweet. But by golly, if you put it in salt, you'd be like, whoa! And Christians should be very, very distinctive because of knowing Jesus. And so that's what we're doing. But also the Sermon on the Mount is not just about a kind of hard-hitting manifesto of what it will be like to be a follower of Christ. Fascinatingly, it is actually also the secret to true and eternal and lasting happiness. The world is starving hungry to know how to be happy. Anyone here see the Channel 4 News last week? Do you know what? 20 minutes of the Channel 4 News was all about how to be happy. Can you believe it, John Hopkins? I couldn't believe it. I was just staggered. I was screaming at the telly saying, listen to the sermon series, Jon Snow. It was all about it. And they were like, we have this hypothesis that actually, if you measure the GDP of a nation, that's the gross domestic product, thank you, that's how rich it is, compared with the happiness ratings. Do you know what we've discovered? Is that some of the richest countries aren't the happiest. Wow. And it was this big sort of discovery. And I was just like, yeah, Jesus has been saying that for a few thousand years. And so they're doing this big thing, and you can look on the Facebook page of Channel 4 News and get involved with the debate. So we're looking at the fact that to be a Christian isn't about being all miserable, as a lot of people think about following rules. It's about actually discovering the real eternal place where we find joy and happiness. And it's about a creator who hasn't said, I don't want anyone to be happy, but actually that we try and find happiness in the wrong place. And that the only place to find real, true joy and happiness is intimately in relationship with the creator of the universe. Hallelujah? Hallelujah. Absolutely. That's what it's all about. But at the same time, as we follow him, as we come into relationship with him, there is cost and there is sacrifice. So it's this wonderful blend that we see in the Sermon on the Mount. And today we come to our fifth beatitude. A beatitude basically is a funny word, which means blessing, okay? It's talking about those who are fortunate. And we've looked at 4 of these previously. And today we come to Matthew chapter 5 and verse 7. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Let's just pray, shall we? Father, thank you that you want us to be the happiest people in the world. You want your church to be a people who discover real joy. Thank you that even here you say, those who have tasted mercy, Lord God, are those that are truly those that receive mercy upon mercy and are transformed and are blessed. Father, I want to pray for us today as a family, as a church family. Lord, I know many here would have had tough, exhausting weeks, and they've staggered their way to church. I praise you for this church. I praise you for the mercy of God in this church. And today I want to ask once again, Father, for every man, woman, and child here, maybe your first Sunday here, I want to pray that the floodgates of mercy would open. Lord, show us the wonder of the gospel, that mercy that is like no other. The sweetest wine that is the mercy of God demonstrated in Jesus. And everyone said, Amen. Okay, so 3 questions today that we have to ask when we look at this beatitude. First of all, what is mercy? What is mercy? Secondly, why is it such a big deal? Why is it important? And then thirdly, once you've been thoroughly convinced in your heart it's the most important thing in the world, how, pray tell, do we grow in mercy? What is mercy? Why is it important? And how do we grow in it? So first of all then, what is mercy? You might think, oh, Tom, this is an easy one. Some of the previous Beatitudes are a little bit more of a head bender. Blessed are those who mourn. What does that mean? But actually, this one, on the surface of it, is a little bit more obvious to understand. Blessed are the merciful. But what I want to first of all say is this, is that he's not describing here people who are naturally merciful. You know those types of people? Those types of people who are just, they never seem to get angry, they never react badly, they're just naturally lovely and merciful people. As I'm saying this, you're probably imagining various people you think, oh, I'm really pleased for them, but I'm just not like them. We're not describing natural temperaments. Now, I know that's an obvious point, but I've heard people preach on this, famous people, and they list the Beatitudes, and they basically say these are natural temperaments, and God rewards people who are naturally like this. So if you just happen to be someone who's very merciful, you then earn mercy. Okay? If you're naturally poor in spirit and lowly, then you get God's favor. That's rubbish. Because you know what? If that was true, not a single person here would qualify to receive grace and mercy from God. Do you understand that? We must never read this as a list of natural temperaments. Because the reality is, even if you're the most merciful person naturally in this room, compared with the God we're going to look at today, do you know what? You're a billion trillion miles way off the beam. So just to get it out there, no one is naturally merciful enough to receive anything other than judgment from God. So it's not talking about a natural temperament. It is talking, as with all of these, about a supernatural temperament. Say supernatural. Supernatural. I'm going to keep you awake today because you're cold. Supernatural temperament. It's about a supernatural thing. And we often think supernatural, isn't that a bit over the top? No. This is actually, the Bible from start to finish is a book crammed with the supernatural. And the promises here is that it's describing a person or persons that have supernaturally been transformed from being an absolute rotter, like me, Tom Shaw, to being someone who's increasingly growing in becoming merciful. That's the glory of this. So you might sit here and think, Tom, you don't know my past, mate. You don't know my past. I've had an awful past. Are you saying that this is available for me? Amen, it is. It really is available for you. It's glorious. Blessed are the merciful. He's talking here about not a natural thing, but a supernatural thing. And a famous pastor from the past called Martin Lloyd-Jones says this. He says, what is mercy? Perhaps the best way of approaching it is to compare it with grace. Grace is especially associated with men in their sins. Mercy is especially associated with men in their misery, i.e., while grace looks upon sin as a whole, mercy looks upon the consequences of sin. So that mercy really means a sense of pity plus an action or a desire to change. Say pity plus. Pity plus. Let's try that again. Pity plus. Pity plus. This is huge for us, okay? Pity in a thing plus an action or a change or in behavior. It's pity plus a desire or an action to relieve the suffering. It is pity plus action. So he says, when you find yourself, this is how you can test yourself, in a position of having in your power someone who has transgressed against you. Now think about the way that you feel. This is the way to know whether you are a merciful person or not, is to consider how you feel towards that person. Are you going to say, well, now I'm going to exert my right at this point. I'm going to be legal. This person has transgressed against me. Very well, here comes my opportunity. Well, this is the very opposite of being merciful. This person is in your power. Is there a vindictive spirit, or is there a spirit of pity and sorrow? A spirit, if you like, of kindness to your enemies in distress. So that's Lloyd-Jones's brilliant summary of the difference between grace and mercy. Grace and mercy. Mercy deals with the nitty-gritty, practical earth realities of a people who are sinful. It's the rolling up our sleeves and actually getting involved with this planet, which is broken and in a great deal of pain. That's what mercy is. It's pity plus action. He then goes on to say one of the most famous stories in the Bible is the Good Samaritan. Put your hand up if you've heard the Good Samaritan. We've all heard of it. Yeah, basic story is it's a parable Jesus told. And there's a Samaritan who was not a highly thought of person in those days, who was in great physical need. And all these posh and important religious people walk past the Samaritan and do nothing. And then someone who's more unlikely comes and expresses mercy, pity plus action. He points out that it's probable that those other people would have felt an internal compassion towards the person, but there was no pity plus. It was just pity. Now, this is what I think personally is so challenging about mercy. Mercy, if it's to be mercy, involves a response. I have to say, it is glorious to be standing here moments after Ewan has got up and said, I want to come into the church and just say thank you, and to say, well done, that 40 people or whatever had mercy, yeah? Now, you may not have signed up, that's fine, it's not a guilt trip, it's just to say, for those of you who did, that's kind of the thing I'm talking about. And there's lots of different ways we can do this, as we're going to see, but that's a great example of pity plus action. And notice here that Jesus doesn't qualify in what situations we are to show mercy. Do you see that? He doesn't say in those situations that are really deserving of it, that's when you show mercy. He's describing here the basic disposition of every true Christian basically all the time. Now that's pretty challenging, isn't it? He's saying, he doesn't say, blessed are the merciful when there's an extenuating circumstance where that situation really deserves mercy. He's actually saying, blessed are those who are just overflowing with mercy. So it's a basic function of being a disciple rather than a specific situation-based thing that occasionally we engage in. Does that make sense? Can you nod? Yeah? So it's a basic disposition of being a follower of Christ is that we are those that often, again and again, show mercy. Okay, so that's a rough 5-minute explanation of what it is. So why is it important, Tom? Why is it such a big deal? I'll tell you why it's such a big deal. Is because we live in a world that absolutely rejects mercy. Now, of course, there are incidences of where mercy occurs, where there is a demonstration of mercy. But when you look around the world that we live in right now, generally its appetite is for revenge, and mercy and forgiveness is just seen as tame. I mean, it's just kind of everywhere that you look when you start to think about it. Silly examples. Driving through Wincheap, okay? Area of Canterbury. You come to the Morrison's lights. There's 2 sets of lights. There's two lanes. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? There's 2 lanes. Why are there 2 lanes? Well, because we should drive in both lanes to help the flow of traffic. British people don't like that for some bizarre. We like to queue. We've got to make it tough. So we all queue in the left lane, don't we? We stand there going, doo-ba-doo, fair's fair. Stay in the left lane. Who went down that right-hand lane? I go down that right-hand lane. Yes. And then you come to the end where they merge, and guess what? Stoic faces. You're like, hello, can I if I just pull in there? Do you mind if I just... Stoic faces. No way, Jose. I am not going to let you in. And it's just like bumper to bumper, this new skill of becoming like inches away from each other, like, yeah, we'll join together against this guy. And you're just like, help, trapped forever in the right-hand lane. There's people still there, and they've been there for years. They can't get in. We've got to go and help them now. Come on, mercy. Merciless. Or what about this? When you let someone in, you're like, flash, flash, come on in. And in they come, and a bit later on, then you see someone waiting, before them, and they just drive past. And you think, you rotter, I just expressed mercy to you. Or maybe you are one of those people. I know I have been. Thank you very much. Pull them in. And then you're like, get lost. I'm going. I'm in a hurry. Mercy is like a stranger in this world. Planes. They bring out, what? They bring out the heart of lack of mercy. It's bizarre. There's a phenomenon, isn't there? You land. You're strapped in. We don't like being strapped in. We're looking at the little light. Come on. We're only taxing at 6 miles an hour. Come on, you light. And then we get there and everyone's like, bong! And it's just like posh people, poor people, rich. Everyone's just... Grannies are flattened on the ground. Women heavy in pregnancy are just tossed to the side. I've got to get my hand luggage. It's true, isn't it? It's true. Confined spaces put a pressure on the human race, and the real us comes out. Vicars and saints. Mother Teresa suddenly decks someone, is getting her bag, There's something in all of us. When me and Joshua were in Edinburgh about 2 weeks ago, we flew up, and it was like, bong, and suddenly this absolute lack of mercy is demonstrated. Do you know, when we took off, we were with EasyJet, where you don't book your seats. And we got on and everyone's like pushing past each other, assuming that the plane was going to be full. So everyone, like first seat you saw, down you go. The hilarious thing was the plane was only half the amount of passengers. So within about 5 minutes, everyone was in the first sort of 6 rows. I mean, there's just a cavernous space. And the air hostess were like, oh, flipping heck, these people. So they started walking around saying, excuse me, sir, would you, not to me, to other people, they said, would you mind just moving to the back? Just because actually we will probably crash as a plane. Because of the, seriously, she said, we could potentially nosedive because we're so unbalanced. Do you know what the guy said? No, get lost. He said, I've got my seat now. I heard him say these, and I was just like, okay, so we're going to crash. But it was just ridiculous. It's like moronic. Do you know what I mean? But it's true. Because we're sinful. The world is sinful. We put a veneer, but the world generally rejects mercy. We have phrases like, in the police, zero tolerance. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I don't really understand what it means, but I know that it's talking about the idea of no mercy. Performance-related pay. That's how the world thinks. You know, not mercy-related pay. People who are really rubbish will give you a bonus. They'd be outraged, wouldn't there? You know, and partly right. You watch the Channel 4 News. I like Channel 4 News, you can tell. Do you know what? Every week, it's like every day, in fact, during the week, it's like, okay, because the world has an appetite for revenge and not forgiveness, have you noticed they always get 2 people on who are polar opposites in whatever the issue is? Have you noticed that every day? And they're like, so what do you think about his policy? And then they watch, and you can see the glint in their eye. I love it. When it's just occasionally, one of them is mature enough, it just goes, do you know what? There's some differences of opinion, but basically, I think we're all pretty much on the same page. John's just like, what? What were you talking about? Surely you don't really. And there are those rare moments on Channel 4 where actually they basically agree. And there's some differences, but they actually express mercy, and it's just like rubbish TV because the world wants to see a scrap. The world doesn't like mercy. Mercy is tame, isn't it? So the mercy, forgiveness, getting on. What? No. You see, this is the world we live in. Paxman, Jeremy Paxman. He has done something. I mean, I love the guy at one level, but he has bred a type of journalism that just thrives on just ridiculous, attackive, grotesque, lack of mercy journalism. That's not a very grammatical phrase, but you know what I mean. It's true, isn't it? He's interviewing potential prime ministers. Have a bit of respect, Jeremy. These are important people. And he's just, do you remember when they lead up to the last general election? Paxman was just so ruthless. There was no mercy, absolutely, as if he could do any better. Do you know what I mean? Just killing these guys. You know, it's just, and now there's a whole load of people who want to be Paxman. Have you noticed that? And these generally really nice people, and they're like, okay, I've got to be really nasty. And they interview people, and it's because the world we live in is a world that hates mercy. It hates mercy. It wants to see all the time revenge. What was your reaction this week when you heard about the Irish bailout going to cost every British person, that's right, anyway, us, hundreds of pounds each? Did you know that? 80 billion euros is going to affect us by hundreds of pounds each per household. When I heard that, I was like, oh. Well, I won't tell you what I thought. I just was like, all these Irish jokes. No. I was just like, this is unfair. You know? My instinctive response was not, well, of course, no problem. My instinctive response was sinful. It was lack of mercy. It was short-sighted. It was, full of myself. It's ridiculous. It's sinful. It's wrong. And even now, when you heard about South Korea this week, North Korea, you know that North Korea bombed South Korea. It's scary days we're living in, isn't it? But you know what? As you pointed out a few months ago, a mysterious torpedo from nowhere actually hit a South Korean ship. And South Korea, maybe partly because I think 40% of South Korea are born-again Christians, maybe that influenced their response, which was actually mercy. They didn't launch a full-out attack. They just gave them the benefit of the doubt. There was mercy. But you can just imagine in the mind of the North Korean Prime Minister thinking, right, you're just an easy pushover. He hates mercy. He looks at mercy as weakness. That is what many in the world think. Mercy equals weakness. And I think also this is particularly true when we think about one of the British cultural strongholds or mindsets, we might call it, of this, private space. When you add a basic sinful heart of lack of mercy, plus the British disposition, which is you never get involved in other people's stuff, yeah? It's around, that's why that is a deadly combination when it comes to the issues of mercy. That's why 6 months ago, a 12-year-old gets, I think, either beaten or stabbed to death in the tube at 4 p.m, and no one gets involved. Well, there must be a reason why this is happening. British culture, we don't want to get involved. I was walking down the high street 2 weeks ago, and there was a man walking along with his partner, holding a 2 or 3-year-old upside down by one leg. And you know what my response was, instinctively, was one of absolute fury. But then I caught myself and thought, I can't just say, excuse me, sir, what are you doing? You know, there was this cultural mindset thing that kicked in. And then I checked that and said, who cares, Tom? I was having this inner conversation. You've got to get involved. Now, by the grace of God, by that point, he had actually righted the child and was just holding it. But I heard him saying to his partner, saying, she's doing my bleep, bleep head in. It was a horrible, thing. And I was just thinking, and I just watched myself thinking, there was this response that I had that was culturally influenced. So we have these things against us. And so we do live in a world where normally mercy is not seen, where we live in a merciless world. And our British culture, which is private, 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 makes it even worse. Do you know, in the papers recently, just this week, there was a 12-year-old Mexican assassin. Do you hear about that? 12-year-old. And him and his sisters, they're part of a gang in Mexico, and they go out and they slit people's throats at 12, and they torture them. And he's called the Cloak, and he's just been caught at 12. And he said he just delights in it. He said, if we can't find the victims that we're paid to kill, we'll just kill someone else. We'll torture them and then kill them as well. This kid's 12. That is the world we live in. That's why this issue of mercy, my friends, is of massive importance. Because the world rejects mercy, but I want to humbly say the world radically needs mercy. It may not even realize it. It may be addicted in some ways to a kind of unforgiving thing, a kind of vindictive thing. But actually, I believe the world desperately needs mercy. And that's a very dramatic examples I've given, but I believe when you start to look at it, the whole thing of lack of mercy is a huge reason why so much of this society is falling apart. I mean, it's one of the often reasons why people become so driven in their workplace. When you actually discuss what's going on, well, my parents, basically, they never really expressed mercy to me. And it was only if I did well and was as good as them that they were loved, that I was loved. And so actually I'm working to prove them wrong, to prove myself. For so many people, that kind of thing is driving them, driving, because they're in a family where they never tasted real mercy. So many marriages are torn apart in this nation. I don't know what the divorce stats are, but they're high because ultimately spouses so often, when they feel wronged, rather than expressing mercy, there's no way to do that. It doesn't even feel right. And so actually, marriages are torn apart by a lack of mercy within them. I think even often harsh parents, maybe that guy I saw on the street, who knows? So often when you actually have time and talk to people who perhaps are overly harsh in parenting, often it's because they themselves never received mercy themselves. They never saw it. They never even understood what mercy is. The environment I grew up in was just one of lack of mercy. And I think this is huge. And this is huge, guys, because it's not just that it externally affects the society that we live in, but even internally. You know, if we are people who are not rich in mercy, it actually eats us away. It eats us away. Many people, the person that they're least merciful to is themselves. The person that we're most harsh on is actually ourselves. And we're our own worst critic. Not in a helpful and sober-minded way, in a way that can be very, very destructive. It's huge. And also, when we are a people who don't express mercy, we often end up isolating ourselves. If you're known as someone who's just very, there's no mercy that comes. Actually, people just withdraw and you become very lonely and isolated. And the real saddest point is this. If we're honest, when we look at the church in some ways, is it known as the place of mercy? I think we've got some work to do sometimes. And I'm talking about the church, not just this church. I'm talking about the church generally. Philip Yancey, in an amazing book, if you haven't read this book, What's So Amazing About Grace, he says this. A true story in Chicago, a woman who worked with the down and outs in Chicago. She said, a prostitute came to me in wretched straits. She was homeless, she was sick, unable to buy food for her 2-year-old daughter. Through sobs and tears, she told me she'd been renting out her 2-year-old daughter for sex. She had made more money renting out her daughter for an hour than she would earn on her own in a night. She had to do it, she said, to support her own drug habit. I could hardly bear hearing her sordid story. For one thing, it made me legally liable because I was now required to report cases of child abuse. But also I had no idea what to say to this woman. At last, I said to her, have you ever thought of going to a church for help? And I will never forget the look of pure, naive shock that crossed her face. Church? She said. Why would I ever go there? I was already feeling terrible about myself. They'd just make me feel 10 times worse. And I know that when I hear about extreme cases like that, and I feel myself judging a woman like that, and I think even subtly, in an unconscious way, the church in the West can be a place which people don't feel that they can come if they've had a really dark life, a life where maybe they have done serious stuff that actually they shouldn't have done, but nevertheless. And I have a deep passion to see in my lifetime, friends, I have a deep passion to see at least this church become rich in mercy. To become a place where prostitutes feel they can come, where drug abusers, drug pushers feel they can come, where those who have had seriously violent pasts and feel condemned and guilty beyond belief can come, where those who in a whole load of different, more subtle ways have had nevertheless things that they think disqualify them from coming to the nice Christian church. Friend, we want that, don't we? We want it. I want it. I want it in my head when I read that story and I think the church is going to be the hope of the world. And you read the Bible from cover to cover and it declares, it screams out about a God, as it says in Exodus 34, a God who is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. That's the God of the church. That's who he is. A God rich in mercy. As it says in Matthew 9, Jesus says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, not people who do really tough stuff to prove how good they are. I desire mercy. That's God's heart, that the church across the world would be drenched in mercy. In James 2, it says, what good is it if someone who's homeless comes to you and you say, peace, peace, go well with you, if you don't actually give them practical help? It says that. So we are called by God. So this is our final question today. Well, listen, if mercy is what the world desperately needs more than anything, and God is a God who absolutely oozes mercy, then how do we, the church, become those who grow in mercy and are aligned with the God who leads us and actually express him to this world? How do we do it, Tom? I have to know. I hear you cry in your hearts. We have to know. And do you know what? The amazing thing is this. It is all about understanding the gospel. It's all about understanding the good news of what, if you're a Christian here today, you have received already. You see, the gospel changes us. When we really taste the gospel, it changes us. And over the last few weeks, we've looked at these Beatitudes. And what is so fascinating is there's no probably better place in the Bible that we find that helps us to understand how we grow in mercy more than these previous 4 Beatitudes that we've looked at, that express the gospel. But it's interesting that this beatitude, this call to be merciful is the fifth one. Shall I tell you why? Because it's impossible. They're all impossible. But this one, to be a person who is genuinely merciful, it requires 1, 2, 3, 4, all the preceding beatitudes being in place if we're to be actually a people who are merciful. It's a bit like cylinders in a car. You know, I'm not very practical, but I know that there's cylinders in a car engine. And if you haven't got them all functioning, it's less powerful, isn't it? So if you have like one cylinder and you've got an 8-cylinder car, then it's pathetic. And it's like each of these beatitudes that we're going to look at now, remind ourselves of, each of these needs to be fully working in order for the engine of mercy to be expressed. And what you're going to see is each of the previous beatitudes that we've looked at, if that beatitude doesn't describe you, I guarantee you there will be a deficit in the levels of mercy that you experience. And what is so fascinating is each of these beatitudes, it's almost like a diagnosis, is that as we look at it, and if you say, do you know what, Tom, I'm not like that, you will see a corresponding exposure of, therefore, the lack of mercy in your life. So first of all then, we looked at, blessed are the poor in spirit. This is verse 3. This is the first way that we grow in becoming a people of mercy. What was being poor in the spirit? It was basically this: know your need. Know your need. Okay? Humans are deluded outside of God's grace and intervention. We think we have no real needs. Most people think that we are in control of our life and that we basically are lords of our own destiny and that we basically know what we're planning to do this afternoon and tonight. We're in control. This beatitude says the starting place to becoming a Christian is when God breaks into our delusion and shows us that we are anything but powerful, anything but in control, and even the fact that your heart is beating right now is a grace gift. Say grace gift. Grace gift of the Lord Almighty. You cannot control that. God is in control. We have no idea how long we have on this earth. And this beatitude is about tasting it. It's about tasting. One of the great preachers of the last few centuries, Jonathan Edwards, said that we often think of ourselves as kind of the lords of our own destiny, and we're rich in spirit. We see ourselves highly. Actually, the Bible tells us outside of Christ, we are like a spider that is hanging by a thread over a huge, great fire. He's talking about judgment, and he's saying that every single human is hanging by a thread, like a little spider. It's like the line in that song that has already been quoted, I once was blind, but now I see. I want you to think of myself as the Lord of my own destiny and in control. It's that God has awakened in us an incredible need for a rescuer. Yeah, that we realize we need a rescuer. And often, I think, when I talk to Christians, tell me about how you became a Christian, they talk about, well, I chose God and I made this decision. And I'm thinking, I kind of know what you mean, but do you know that ultimately you were rescued? You were rescued. You didn't choose God. Ephesians 2 says you were dead in your transgressions and sins, but God, who is rich in mercy, he broke into our darkness and he gave you a vague interest in God. If you're not Christian and you're here today, why are you here? It's because there's a vague interest in your mind, potentially for things of a spiritual nature, that the Bible tells us wasn't just that you became interested all of a sudden, is that God came to you and he's making your life, he's giving you an appetite for things of God. But that's all his mercy. But God, who is rich in mercy, he opened our eyes. So this beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit, knowing your need, feeling the fact that you need a savior. This particularly, when you get hold of this in your soul, this particularly empowers you for mercy in the realm of helping the needy. Okay, we're going to look at mercy in different ways, in forgiveness and other things. But first of all, make the link. People who are poor in spirit, who have seen what I've just described, are particularly empowered to be merciful for those who are in need. Because if you're someone who hasn't understood that and you think of yourself more highly and you think, I'm in control, we're all in control, my success in life has become because I've worked really hard, when you see someone in need, you unconsciously think they deserve it. Because we're all in control, aren't we? And I've done really well, and so I've got this, and that person who's just a bit of a loser, well, they kind of deserve it. Now, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I know that Tom Shaw at times can be like that. A friend of mine who leads a big church said that they discovered a lady homeless at the back of their church building. She'd been there for weeks and no one had realised. And he said he found himself just thinking, and his instinctive reaction was just kind of, oh, what a nuisance almost. And anyway, he eventually talked to this lady. And turned out she was incredibly posh. She was married to a very wealthy accountant. But 6 months ago, she'd found out that she had cancer. And she just hadn't been able to cope with it. And so she'd hit the bottle, and she'd become an alcoholic. She'd become absolutely, in the grip of alcohol. Her husband had thrown her out. And she was now facing death alone. 6 months earlier, she would have been in Marks and Spencer's, picking the choice selection. This happens to her. She takes no mercy from her husband. She spins out and is ending up in the fetal position outside a church. And my friend realized he had judged homeless people. He had thought, well, they deserve it. I've worked really hard. I haven't had a good life. I've worked really hard, and actually I'm doing all right. So, and we can all do that. And when you're poor in spirit, you realize, do you know what? Even if I have worked hard, and even if I have, actually that's a gift of God. Everything's a gift. Paul says, what do I have that is not a gift? Answer, nothing. And that humbles us, and it reminds us, if I'm going to be merciful with regards helping the needy, if you struggle with this, it might be because there's more poverty of spirit that God wants to help us in. So poverty of spirit particularly enable us with mercy with regards to help of the needy. Secondly, though, we looked at, blessed are those who mourn. Again, this is another description of the gospel getting hold of someone. You don't just, first of all, see your need. You secondly mourn the fact that you are stained. That every human is polluted, contaminated with something called sin. And sin is just basically our inward rebellion of our Father in heaven, where we just live for ourselves. And it affects everything. And true Christians are those who are poor in spirit, but also they mourn the sin in their life and the effect of it in the world. Do you remember I talked about the illustration of seeing that girl in the petrol station on the front of the newspaper called Chloe Victoria, who was a prostitute aged 19 and did drugs, and my heart broke. And that was God changing my judgmental heart to saying, I now mourn the state of this world. It breaks my heart. God has given us his heart. Now, this is vital if we are going to be a people who are merciful in the response of forgiveness. Think about it. When you have seen the extent of your own sin, when you are therefore sinned against, and something rises up in you and you just want to just get justice and be vindictive, actually, the only way that we can express mercy with regards to forgiveness is if we are those that mourn. We know our own sin. We know that, quite frankly, we would have offended people. We would have done the wrong thing. It's the only way. I've told the story before, several years ago. I got a letter that was horrendous, that was just like a machine gun of awful things to me. Most of them I think were totally untrue. And the only way that didn't grip me and I became bitter was actually through God showing me, Tom, do you know what? You've sinned against a lot of people, and also you've sinned against me. David Pawson, a very famous Bible teacher, he wrote a book and had absolute horrendous criticism from the public about it. And he was feeling really sorry for himself. And he said to God, this is out of order. And then God whispered to him, David, the very worst thing that anyone can say about you is not anywhere near as bad as the truth. It's true, isn't it? Let's be honest. That is so true. And when you glimpse that, I know it sounds strange, it sounds like I'm being harsh. I'm not. It's actually strangely releasing. When you just think, man, I'm a doofus. I'm a new creation if I'm a Christian. No more in condemnation. Here in the grace of God I stand. But actually, I am still someone who, when no one's seeing my thought life and my heart, man, I'm a work in progress. Let's just get that out there. Let's just be real as a church. No pretending. We are all going to be a work in progress till the time that Jesus comes back. Okay? We are. Now that is massive, because if you don't mourn your own sin, if you're not getting what I'm saying, if you're like a good, nice Christian who became a Christian really young, and I've never done anything really bad, Tom, and you're thinking sin equals action for the millionth time, it's about attitude. It's about internal offense to God. If you're envious, if you're covetous, if you're sinfully angry, if you lust in your heart, those are just as big a deal as actions. And that therefore means that we should be those that mourn that sin. Why? Because it empowers us to forgive when we're sinned against. We are merciful when regards forgiveness. And this is massive because the world has no answer when things are awful. When they're sinned against, there's no answer but justice. But if the Church of Jesus Christ can really get hold of this, I'm not exaggerating to say this world will be transformed. In 2006, many of you remember an Amish community in Pennsylvania. It was in the news. A gunman whose name was Charles Roberts. He took hostages and eventually shot 10 girls, killing 5 before committing suicide. During interviews conducted later, it became apparent that all the girls knew of their fate. Some conversed among themselves throughout the ordeal. And shortly before Roberts opened fire, 2 sisters, Mariam and Barbie Fisher, 13 and 11, requested that they be shot first, that the others might be spared. Barbie was wounded while her older sister was killed. Reports stated that most of the girls were shot execution style in the back of the head. The ages of the victims ranged from 6 to 13. Inside the school, Ballinger, the headmaster, said there was not one desk or chair in the whole schoolroom that was not splattered with blood. There were bullet holes everywhere. But on the day of the shooting, a grandfather of one of the murdered Amish girls was heard warning some young relatives not to hate the killer. He said, another Amish father said, this killer, Roberts, he had a mother and a wife and a soul that is now standing before a just God. Jack Mayer, another member of the Amish community, he said this, I don't think there's anybody here that wants to do anything but forgive. And not only reach out to those who have suffered a loss in that way, but to reach out to the family of the man who committed these acts. Robert's family spokesman said an Amish neighbor, this is the killer's family, the spokesman for them, an Amish family comforted the Roberts family hours after the shooting and extended forgiveness to them. Amish community members visited and comforted Robert's widow, this is the killer's widow, parents and parents-in-law. One Amish man held Robert's sobbing father in his arms, reportedly for as long as an hour to comfort him. The Amish have set up a charitable fund for the family of the shooter, and about 30 members of the Amish community attended Robert's funeral. And Marie Roberts, the widow of the killer, was one of the few outsiders invited to the funeral of one of the victims. It goes on. It's mind-blowing. This is the community that had their little girls and boys shot by a guy. If that isn't a miracle of mercy, I don't know what is. And do you know how they were able to do that? It's because the Amish community were clearly a people who mourned their own sin. Blessed are those who mourn. They had understood themselves that they were nothing more than recipients of ongoing incredible mercy before a holy God. And so they had a framework of reference for understanding how this happened. Why would this man do it? Well, it's because actually this world, this side of Jesus making everything new, is still fallen. That is breathtaking. That is breathtaking. If we're poor in spirit, it empowers us to forgive. Thirdly, meek. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What's meekness? It's about smallness. Smallness that we see ourselves before God in a small way. That we've understood that we're poor in spirit and that we are those that mourn our sin. The sum total is that we're meek. It means that we understand that Jesus Christ, who paid the price for us to become right with God, is now ascended in glory as the living God, who will judge the living and the dead. Meekness is all about understanding our appropriate proportion before God. It's the sum total of the previous two. And it has everything to do with mercy, guys, because you know what? If we are going to be a people who are merciful, not just merciful in the sense of working with the needy, not just merciful in terms of forgiveness, but this one, merciful when it's really costly, then being a meek people is going to be everything to us. If we're not meek, if we are those that are trying to hold on to our lives, Jesus said those who lose their lives will find it. If we're trying to hold on to our lives because we actually see ourselves more highly, we will really struggle when it comes to expressing mercy in the form of costly mercy. Yeah? We can express mercy on Comic Relief Day and, I'm going to give 20 quid, whatever. That's not mercy which is costly. That's mercy, but it's not costly. Costly mercy only comes from people who are meek. If we're not meek, there's no mercy. Why am I saying that? I'll tell you why. Because when you understand your smallness before God, it empowers you to respond in mercy, even when it may mean your very life is taken from you. Rodney Stark wrote these words, a first century historian. There was a massive plague in the first century. He says the doctors were quite incapable of treating the disease. People died all the time, impossible to keep up with it, and so people afraid to look after each other, and in many houses all the inhabitants perished, and the bodies of the dead were stacked on top of each other, and half-dead creatures staggered around. The catastrophe was so bad, people became indifferent to all the rules of morality, often pushing away the sick, even their own relatives. Many Christians, though, showed unbounded love, thinking only of the others. Deep, profound loyalty, never sparing themselves, but only thinking of others. Many of them took charge of the sick, and many departed their lives serenely, cheerfully, never sparing themselves, heedless of danger, attending to the every need of the sick, and ministering to them in Christ's name, cheerfully accepting their death and pains. Many elders and pastors departed this life that way. Man, that's challenging. Deep in your soul, don't you think, I want that? I want to be someone who is so gripped, who is so meek, who so understands my right position before God, that I am someone who is willing to express pity plus action. Finally, though, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. What's this? This just means that your appetite as a human has changed. Where previously you would have hungered and thirsted for fame, for wealth, for notoriety, for a relationship, whatever. When you become a Christian, it's not that just that you're poor in spirit and you mourn and you're meek. It also means your very appetites have radically changed. And this itself means that you have a hunger and a thirst for the mercy of God. That his righteous rule in your life is what you live for, but also that you live to see justice and righteousness flowing into society. I've told this story before, but it's just so good, I've got to say it again. I worked at a homeless shelter a few years ago, just very briefly for a couple of weeks. And it was pretty grim work, to be honest with you. It was tough. You know, you were having often older men who were incontinent, or, you know, I remember bathing one guy and having to take his clothes off, and it was just, really, really full on. And the place just, it was a night shelter, and it was just really, there was often fights breaking out, and it was just really scary and hard, and man, I was in there for a couple of weeks, but it was just full on. And one of the most passionate guys who always wanted to do the hardest, most awful stuff was a guy called Danny. Danny was amazing. He was always the first to kind of sign up to kind of do the most grim jobs. And he was from Lebanon. He was from Beirut. And I was just amazed at this guy. I thought, what a guy. He hungered and thirsted for righteousness. He just had this hunger put in him by God to bless people, to express mercy practically, even when it was the most gruesome kind of stuff. It was only when he left, asking some of his friends about Danny. Danny was the oldest son of one of the richest men in the world. His dad was worth multiple billions, and he was the oldest son. He was set to inherit it from a Muslim family, Islamic family. He already had 4 or 5 supercars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris. But he had gone radically born again, and he hungered and thirsted for this, for mercy. He wasn't doing it to be good. He was just a man who's a new creature. He was from one of the wealthiest families in the world. It meant nothing to him. All he wanted to do was be Christ to the people who had nothing. That's a miracle. That is mental. It is breathtaking. And that's what the Creator God does when he grabs hold of someone. There's nothing special about Danny in and of himself, apart from that God had come to him. And it meant that he hungered and thirsted now for righteousness. He hungered it. His appetite wasn't for just normal stuff. He actually hungered and he thirsted for God's reign in his life and the external expression of that in terms of justice. Is that our hunger? Is it genuinely the thing? I want that. I want it in my life. Friends, I dream of a church that has a reputation as a mountain of mercy. I want that. I want a church in the next 10, 20 years, as we pour our lives out into this community, that is known as outrageously merciful. We're not just doing things to evangelize. We're doing things to bless the city because Jesus says, do it. Jesus says, love them. Get involved. Pour your lives into your neighbors. Pour your lives into those in your workplace. Pour your lives into those that you're working with at university. Pour your lives. I want this church to be known, the reputation of this known, as a mountain of mercy. Who wants that? I want that. We're never going to do it apart from the side of knowing the gospel, becoming poor in spirit, meek, and all the other things. As those cylinders start to fire more and more over these years, it's going to happen. I believe it. Because all those examples I've given, they're all glory to God. They're just normal men and women who have understood the gospel, the Spirit of God has invaded their lives, and whole situations that are awful and painful and difficult are being turned around. Oh, how I long for that. I think about us, we're going for this building, as you know, gathering money. I long for this building. I can just see it now. Ablaze, middle of the night. Why? Because there's always mercy stuff happening. It's just a place where there's just mercy, mercy, mercy. People who have been long-term unemployed are there coming in and receiving mercy. Those who have been addicted for years are coming in and being set free. Those who have been long-term depressed are coming into the mercy house and receiving power and wisdom from God's people. People who have never experienced merciful fathering. Young men who would have just walked away and said, I want to learn to be a father. I want to pour mercy into my family. I've never experienced it in previous generations, but I want to break that now. And the house of God is just ablaze with mercy, where it's a place where the homeless can genuinely come in, where the rich can come in, where people from every background can receive the mercy of God. You know, I have to think to myself, what would happen if this church disappeared overnight? Would this city even know? Do you know what? God wants to change that. He wants this to become the rock, a rock like no other. More the church, not just this local church, the churches of this city working many times together to become a visible rock of mercy. A place where we are so gripped by the scandal that we've received mercy. That we don't just think as Christians, I kind of deserve it. We don't deserve it. There's no difference between anyone here, if you're a Christian, and those who aren't Christians. It's the mercy of God. And God wants to melt our hearts. He wants to soften us. He wants to invade every aspect of your sphere of influence. Every aspect. Well, no matter what you do, you are there by God's sovereign design to express and to ooze mercy. And I'm not saying mercy as in which is really nice. Sometimes mercy has teeth. Yeah? Sometimes the most merciful thing is saying the truth. I had a plumber over a few months ago who I've come to know a little bit, and he's a tough guy. He's done 2 tours in Vietnam. He's not very impressed with Christians and and we would get bantering, and I'd be a nice guy. And in the end I said to him, brother, well, I didn't say brother, I just said, mate, he said, I'm not scared of when I die. And I said, you should be. You should be. The Bible is scary. It says that when you die, you're going to face your Creator. And if you haven't received mercy in the form of Jesus Christ at the cross, taking your sin, taking your blame, raising from the dead, pouring his life into you and becoming a new creation, you're going to face a very scary prospect. I hear these words tumbling out. It was God's, and he went quiet after that. Thought, okay. Carried on. Do you know, it's not about a sort of softy mercy. The people of God are merciful, who actually tell the truth, humbly, but knowing that God's mercy has first gone to work on us. Should we stand? We're going to worship God. We've got a few minutes left. We're going to break bread because as we do this, if you're a Christian here today, this is for you. Guys, as we break bread, there is no better reminder that Jesus has given us of mercy. You know, I think of the sun rising and I think, that's nice. There's mercy there. I think of friends and family. There's mercy. That's good, but listen up. There is no mercy like the body of Jesus Christ broken for us. There is no mercy like the blood of Jesus Christ shed for us. This is his gift to us to remember him. If you're sitting here thinking, Tom, I know my heart's a little hard. I know that I've got to grow in this. I want to encourage you as we worship, as we break bread, just say, Father, soften my heart. Soften me. I think all of us need to be softened. I know I do. Man, first of the queue. God, I need you. I need you to help me. And if you're here today and you're perhaps a non-Christian and you're saying, Tom, I want in on this. I want to receive and taste the mercy of God. Do you know what? Right now, you can taste him. You can become a son of God. You can become a daughter of God. There is no religious formula you have to say. You just have to say, I need to be rescued. I need help. And even if that's you, I want to say, don't leave this place without having talked to someone you know. Come and talk to one of us who lead the meeting. We're going to have some red t-shirted prayer team people over here. And I just want to encourage you. You might have heard something today and think, I just want to get right. I want to just really seal this with God. I've become hard-hearted. Or you just might want prayer about anything. And even if you're someone here, your first time here, you're not a Christian, hey, we'd love to pray for you. Prayer is God's wonderful gift. So let's just respond, shall we? Maybe you just want to open your hands. Let's just say, Lord, I want to say, Lord, open and soften my heart. Lord, send out your church today, filled with the mercy of God. Not a natural, trying to be nice, Hugh Grant kind of deal, but mercy that is a gift from God. I want to pray right now, Lord, as we worship you and as we break bread and as many receive prayer, and perhaps there's some here today give their life to you and become Christians. God, I want to pray for a grace and mercy invasion from heaven, Lord. Right now, Lord, Holy Spirit, as we stand here, I ask it. Only you can do this, Lord. Spirit of God, only you, Lord God, can make us from blind people to seeing people, from those who have a hard heart to having a soft heart. Lord, I pray for our hearts as we break bread now, as we drink the wine. Lord, I pray, as we even taste the bread, let us remember a God of mercy. No matter what you've done today, his mercy covers it.